Hello, everyone. Welcome to Global Soccer Conclave and welcome to today's session on fitness evaluation and assessment. I'm Dr. Amol Patel. I'm a sports physician and I'm working as sports education consultant with Sports Next at present. And I'm the host for today as a moderator for this session. We have esteemed panelists with us and I'll be introducing all of them. But before I do that, let us see something about the fitness evaluation and assessment. As the professionals working in elite soccer teams, there is a comprehensive fitness evaluation for athletes, which is the requirement, and that can be quite challenging at some times because it may be complicated due to many complexities involved into it. The right choice of physiological and performance battery test should be picked up, and this choice will have to keep in mind the health risks involved and the long-term and short-term goals for this assessment, and also not to mention the infrastructure and equipment availability. Therefore, these battery of tests to be chosen for athletes should not be only for different positions involved in the game of soccer, but they should be for the entire team. And therefore, we have to explore some simple strategies for assessing these athletic teams as a whole, rather than by their player position. If we are conducting multiple assessments on the same day, then a logical sequence must be followed in order to assure the validity of each test. So with that introduction, I think we can move on with the introduction to the panelists. Today we have, esteemed panelists with us. First, I introduce Dr. Pralay Majumdar, sir. He's the sports scientist and exercise physiologist working with the Sports Authority of India, which is an apex body of sports, promoting sports in India. He's also the high performance director and of scientific division in SCI and handling the TOPS scheme, which is the Target Olympic Podium scheme. So welcome, Dr. Majumdar, sir. Welcome to Global Soccer Conclave.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next speaker we have with us is Dr. John Delgado. He's the UFEA Pro Coach and PhD in Sports Sciences with a vast experience of 21 years in coaching with various clubs like Villarreal FC, Valencia, CF, and technical directors at various academies. He's coached to many famous players, including David Silva from Manchester City FC, Jordi Alba from FC Barcelona, and Isco, Real Madrid FC, and many more to his credit. Welcome, Joan. Welcome to the Global Soccer Conclave.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be with you today, guys.
Great. So next we have Mr. Alex Olivares from Academy and Strength Conditioning Coach from Austin FC. He has also worked prior with the Atletico de Madrid Academy. Welcome, Alex. He's a strength conditioning coach there.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. So next speaker we have is Graham Stark. He's a sports scientist at First Beat Technologies, where he's helping and supporting the sporting teams in getting the data and analyzing it for getting best insights. Priorly, Graham has worked as sports scientist with English Premier League for many years and is a published author in heart rate variability and training load monitoring. He also possesses NASM Performance Enhancement Specialist and Corrective Exercise Specialist certifications. Welcome, Graham.
Thank you.
Welcome to Global Soccer Conclave. Yeah, we have Ramji Srinivasan, a former Indian World Cup team strength and conditioning coach. So he was a strength conditioning coach for the Team India in cricket at 2011 World Cup winning team. And he's also coaching Olympic TT athletes and Formula racing athletes. So basically working with multidisciplinary athletes, also a founder, director of Dynamic Sports. Welcome, Ramji. Welcome to Global Soccer Conclave.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invite.
And with this, I request Dr. Majumdar, please start the keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's indeed a pleasure to be associated with all of you. I am Dr. Majumdar. I'm working as Head of Sports Science for SAI and operate from Delhi and HPD TOPS division. So far as football is concerned, few panelists, possibly Alex, I know, I met him at Trivandrum long back, at least 10 years back, when I was working at Bangalore SAI. the sports, whenever we see an international competition, we often ask ourselves as to how the human body made to perform such feat, how can it endure such stretch, strain, and act with such precision? The answer to these questions can be provided by the the people who are involved themselves in the fitness area, like the people who are the coaching staff. And, for the last few years, we have seen that our football scenario in India is not that good because as expected, but we have done well in Asian level, but not in the global level. So when I talk about the different sports science faculty, now the sports science, how the sports scientists in the country are working, we have at least 11 big center of SAI who are taking care of the different sports science assessment. But again, for the assessment is one part, and to connect with the sporting, the different people, those who are actively involved in sports, particularly in football, I think we lack that connection by and large. So what I feel that that kind of support system need to be strengthened in the area of exercise physiology, strength and conditioning, then biomechanics, sports nutrition, sports psychology. These are the various verticals which we have, and we have a different people, those who are working with us, and possibly we can do better in those areas. So Amol, thank you very much, and you can continue your session, please.
Thank you, Dr. Majumdar. Thank you for being here and giving a wonderful keynote address. I'll move on to John. So, John, can you tell us something about, what is the importance of fitness testing according to you?
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Doctor. Yeah, I'm going to try to give more a perspective of a football coach or a technical director. I will let my colleagues talk more about the details of the physiological aspects. But to me, trying to simplify the answer to your question, how important is fitness testing in football or in this case in youth development, elite soccer programs. For me, the fitness testing is a tool. It's a tool that serves to make better strategic decisions. So when I say that, this decision-making process applies both for the player, but also to confirm and to modify the methods, the training methods. So when talking about the player, there are several aspects that you can measure, but if you ask me which one is the crucial one, football-wise, that we take into account is the speed. So, and basically it's because, the evolution of the game, if you just watch a game from 10 years ago and you watch a match of today's Champions League or Premier League, the main difference in the game is the speed of play, the speed of the high intensity efforts, and how fast everything is happening. So if we as a youth experts want to prepare the players for the future, we know that the speed is going to be something that they're going to need. So when making decisions about the players, that's one of the elements that we need to take into account, and one of the crucial elements, I would say. So the other piece related to the player that I think is meaningful and important is again related to the position. You mentioned at the beginning in the introduction, and soccer is a very complex sport, physiologically speaking as well, and the differences between the positions are very relevant. I mean, obviously, if you are a goalkeeper, you're gonna need a different set of skills or a different physiological profile than if you are a center back or a center forward or a center mid or a winger. So we use this data to identify the potential most suitable position for a player. And finally, when talking about methods, we use fitness testing to validate what we do, to validate our periodization, to validate the load, and to manipulate these factors, basically. So we can achieve normally through soccer-specific practices, but also through more analytical practices, the goals of the session. So I would say these are the three main points. The speed as a main factor football-wise, the importance of understanding the physiological profiles per position, and how to use testing to make sure that your periodization and your methodology is optimized.
Thank you, John. So next I go on to, yes, I can see Mr. Pedro Fatela. Let me introduce him. Pedro is Professor Auxiliar Convidado. I spare my English. I think it's in Portuguese. So he works with Universidade de Lisboa. Pedro, how about you introducing yourself? I think I'm having some difficulty with this Spanish.
Portuguese.
Portuguese, sorry, my bad.
Hi to you all, and thanks for the invitation. I'm sorry the delay, but there was a little problem with the connection. Well, I'm a football coach also, but nowadays I'm more related with technical coordination functions. So looking at this subject and looking at football, and I was listening to Juan, and I think it is very interesting to try to discuss one of the things that I'm noticing in the last few years, and it's very curious because we have been done these physical tests and this all development for more than 20 years. And in the academies and the academies of the best clubs in Portugal, when we look at the rankings of the best players that jump more or run faster, we can see that almost in every cases, these players don't reach an elite level. So when we see the player that was the fastest player and has the record in the academy for the 40 meters or for the counter movement jump or another fitness assessment, we can almost relate that with the fact that this player doesn't reach an elite level. When I say an elite level, most of them are professionals, but I would say they don't reach the national level. They are not in the national team. And this makes us think that fitness assessment, it's crucial, but we have to be more ecological. So we have to try to test and to look at these results, the strength and the speed, but we have to see it playing the game, in the game. And this is a big challenge, because when we do that, and we have nowadays GPS almost in every clubs and every elite clubs, we have the difficulty to control the conditions of this evaluation. We have data from games, we have data from trainings. We don't control what happens in trains, in games, in matches. So this challenge to continue to do these fitness evaluations that are crucial, but try to make them more ecological so that we can recruit better, so that we can make a better evolution of the player. Juan was telling, and it's absolutely true, that the positions determine different needs for the players. But a player that is very fast, has high levels of speed, doesn't necessarily mean that that player will be successful in the determined position or even to reach an elite level, because probably he has problems in decision making, for example. And the connection between this fitness assessment that we have to do to evaluate players, to do players management throughout the season, and to do recruitment we have to try to approach this fitness evaluation to a more ecological training and match environment, so that we can make better decisions, not so many mistakes. Because I was talking about the best players, the best players in the rankings of fitness evaluations, but we have several cases of players that were in the bottom, in the final third of that evaluations, and reach an elite level. So there are things here, fitness and assessment things, that need to be done in a more ecological way. So this is the thing that
definitely. I'll come back to you, Pedro, on that matters. Let me move on to Mr. Graham. So Graham, how do you think that measuring an internal load for supporting the fitness testing process, in your opinion, because you're working with one of the best technologies, the first beat, how do you add these, do you think in measuring internal load for training purpose and fitness purpose in the game of soccer?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it depends on kind of what aspect of fitness you're testing, primarily like what your goal is. So yeah, where Juan's spoken about speed testing being very important, and the internal response is probably less relevant to those aspects. But when you're looking at general cardiovascular fitness from VO2 max or endurance testing, then yeah, I think it definitely plays a part. Primarily is an objective number that you can easily add on. So I think one of the challenges with any testing protocol is the motivation of the players, and are they really pushing themselves to their maximum? Are they able to do that in an isolated conditioning test? It's an issue that kind of comes up quite regularly in like perhaps endurance-based sports like cycling, where they do place a big emphasis on testing as part of the development programs for young athletes. But what they've seen, or what often kind of gets reported, is some of the best racers in the world don't produce good testing numbers, but put them in a real situation, and they've physically performed best because that's how they get motivated. So I think, by using internal load, so for example, if you were doing a yo-yo test or a 30-15 IFT, whatever protocol you've chosen to use, you can use that internal response from, whether it's the heart rate, so the training impulse, for example. And that then kind of gives you probably a better number or comparison when you repeat the testing. Because they might poorer than they do next time when they do it with a group, perhaps because you get that competitive nature, that competitive instinct come out in them. So you can compare then their external or their internal loads, to how their actual test results. So if a player goes further the second time he does it, is that really showing an improvement? So has it just cost him a lot more internally? So has he had to burn a lot more energy to do that better improvement? So then you think, well, perhaps maybe it's still kind of the status quo because they've gone further, but it's cost them a lot more in terms of their resources. Or if they've gone further and it's cost them the same as a previous test result, then you can then begin to surmise that there probably has been an improvement in that particular aspect of their conditioning. So I think the test results themselves are useful, but then by actually monitoring the internal load from them, it starts giving a bit more context, a bit more, adding those extra layers to what you're seeing, and helping you kind of draw firmer conclusions on the results you've seen. So I think there's definitely a value to it, and it has a place for sure.
So Ramji, I'm coming to you in a moment, but before that, I go to Mr. Alex. So Alex, what kind of fitness testing do you do at Austin FC Academy for looking at the soccer players?
Mm-hmm. So in our case, we're very fortunate that we have GPS devices at academy level. I don't think like a lot of even professional academies are able to to have them. And for us is very important, as Juan was saying before, to test the maximal acceleration and maximal velocity. We do that every month, but at the same time, as Pedro was saying before, as they are wearing those GPS constantly, sometimes we see players who have like a very good potential. They reach like very high speeds, but then they don't show that, even being in a position where they can express that maximal acceleration and maximal velocity, they don't do it often. So for us, it's also crucial to see how do they express that on the field. And then the opposite case, it will be the maximal deceleration. That is something that we work on every week, and I think it's crucial for players to show maximal deceleration in order to prevent injuries. I think is a big condition in there. And then that happens the opposite. We have seen that during games that happen more times. Like they can improve that maximal deceleration than when they do it in isolated testing. And then to test the endurance, we normally do the Yo-Yo IR2, and this one we do it mostly because to see the difference and see, as Juan was saying before, if our methodology is working, if our physical methodology is working. So we do it a couple of times throughout the year. And lastly, I think one that is very simple and very effective is the counter movement jump. We have seen also that most of the times, if you're explosive vertically, you are also explosive horizontally. And it's a very simple one to do. And that one is one that we do a lot of times during the year.
That's great. Ramji, I would like to hear something from the Indian perspective, or from, majorly in Asian perspective, but yes, you can highlight something Indian perspective too, in terms of strength and conditioning issues. And, you can give an highlight on how the performance will correlate with soccer, cricket, and racing as fitness, because you have an experience working with a lot of athletes across disciplines. And you were one of the famous strength and conditioning expert of the, gods of cricket who won the World Cup. So your experience. Let me tell you, the panelists, cricket in India is like soccer in, Europe.
Soccer in Brazil or soccer in Europe.
Yeah, all over.
A good day to all the panelists and really elite panelists here. And coming back to the topic, really perspective of Indian aspect of soccer and strength and conditioning, I think to be realistic, we have miles to go, regarding especially soccer. We have miles to go because from process, we need a good process and protocols in place, because so many variables are there in our country, because some north to south, east to west to central, there are so many variables, from lifestyle to genetic loading to food habit to socio-economic habits and your mindset. Things are different. I think we need to develop a new system in place so that we identify the best possible talent whom we can harness well over a period of time. Because we need a good long-term athletic development program, and we need our own templates specific to India, because you see soccer, European countries and South America, they are far, far ahead. Even the Asian, you take Korea or Japan or China, even some of the countries like Iran, they're far ahead of us. And we have to be realistic where we are and how we go about in the process, so that we build our own template specific to India, because there are so many variables, as I told you earlier. I think once we do that, looking at long-term development, catching them young from childhood, from grassroots levels, progressing into the amateur level, then semi-professional, professional, then elite. As I don't remember the name, the panelists did two important points here. One is specific fitness for specific game fitness is different from just doing the fitness outdoors, because there are so many things come into play when you are in a day, especially the decision-making abilities, the the variables when you're playing in a match, because every match is different. So we need to train and do fitness design a fitness parameters accordingly, apart from the basic, your VO to max, your deceleration mode, your counter movement, explosive powers, etc. So those things apart, if we can incorporate something on field, like GPS system has come in now, and it has been there for quite some time. We used it in cricket in 2011 in Australia. So we got some amazing inference from that, which helped us to prevent injuries and to get them, derive the maximum out of every player before the World Cup also. So it is a good tool to use, and we need to know how to infer the data. Just collecting data is of no use because it's all numbers, and we need professionals who are able to infer what the data is from a game perspective and from an individual perspective, which is very critical on a long run for a successful progression in soccer. Because yes, it is a very physical sport, and it is one of the quickest sport now. What it was played in 80s or 70s, it is totally different now. Everything is speed, agility and quickness, peripheral awareness, reaction time, everything put together. And they are more of a complete athlete, which we want to develop. So it is a process in place. I think we are getting there. I think people like you, those who are youngsters, young generation getting into sports science and into strength and conditioning, new ideas should come in, and not to directly lift off from what is there in Europe or South America, which we do normally. That's our something suits Germany or Portugal or Spain or Brazil or England. We directly lift out that template and try to apply to our athlete, which will never ever work.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramji. I'll be coming up to you because I know if we guys start talking, I think we can steal away the more time. But doing justice to the panel, I'm just taking it ahead to Dr. Delgado. So, John, do you use the fitness testing for scouting purpose at Austin FC? And if yes, then how?
Thank you for the question, and I think it's a very good one. The short answer is yes. As I said before, and again,
we want to know how, because that's the recipe.
Well, first and foremost, I just want to highlight that I'm in line with what our colleague Pedro has mentioned before. Soccer is a very complex system where decision making and applied technique are crucial, for high levels of performance. Having said that, there is a cut. I mean, and he was mentioning elite football players making it to the national team, being the bottom third of the comparison with their colleagues. This is something that happens in developed countries, and I'm saying this because we need to understand the context as well. We talk about being ecological. So from my experience, for instance, in Qatar, I had to change many of my beliefs that I was applying in Spain because of the talent pool, the number of players available, and the possibility to develop these players in a long-term vision. So, for instance, we call the selection, and coming back to the scouting piece that you were asking me, in Qatar was a definitive selection. We knew the 45 players that could make it to the 2022 World Cup. We identified them when they were 12 and older, and we had a plan, a 10-year vision plan. This is completely different in a country like Spain, where you have thousands, if not millions, of young kids aiming to become football players. And then the selection process is different, it's an open one. So you have a lot of pressure in the system, a lot of players willing to enter the system. So in this case, again, this allows you to have more quality, and with more quality, as Pedro was saying, maybe the physical aspect, the pure physical aspect becomes less relevant, and the talent itself and the ability to make the right choices has more weight and more importance. In here, and coming back to your question, yes, we use speed testing. in a very simplistic manner. I will ask my colleague Alex to complement my reply. But having said that, the first filter is the human eye. You know, the first filter to make a decision, if you have 100 players in a tryout, the first selection that you do is based on the opinions of the coaches. You know, if you have to substitute the human eye, I always say, you know, if the human brain would be a computer, would be the size of Texas or the size of Spain. So we can not underestimate the power of experiences and the power of experienced scouts and coaches. So first filter is football-wise, we select the talented players, and then we use the fitness testing to support these decisions. And I will let Alex to explain a little bit more about exactly how we do it. It's a very functional way and very simplistic way, but it helps us making better decisions. So Alex, can you just share with them the group?
Can you share your insights? And you know, after you share your insights, I want you to answer one more question. That is, if you were to choose one capacity to test, what it will be? The one thing that you know you will choose over others.
So supporting what Juan was saying, it's a very simple test that we do. We do a 20-yard dash, 40-yard dash, and 60-yard dash, and that's for us a very simple way to test maximal acceleration and maximal speed. That can be important, can be an important factor to make the decision. Normally with those players that are on the fence, you know, if you find out a player that is on the fence that he's extremely fast, maybe you're like, okay, we need to see this player again. So it's something that can support the decision. As Juan was saying, for me also the most important factor is the human eye. And then if I respond into your other question, if I had to choose one, I think we have repeated already, like we have said it many times, but it will be the speed. And for me, knowing that, because most of the most important actions during a game happen at high speed, that's why for us is the most important one. Also, the training has to go around that. So for us, building stronger players and faster players is the most important thing.
Yeah, great. Speed is really an important thing, you know, in fitness testing. Moving to Graham, Pedro, I'm coming back to you in a minute. You know, before that, I'll ask Graham that, you know, how do you think that technology will be useful for monitoring these training volumes? And in your opinion, what are the key points for a successful monitoring process using technology?
Yeah, so yeah, we've already probably touched upon it a bit already. Most teams these days have some sort of monitoring technology. And yeah, it's going to support a lot of what they do, whether that is sort of testing within the training program, so kind of testing without explicit testing. So in like the example of the guys at Austin, they may look at the top speeds that are being achieved in games and look at the different rates of accels and decels. But yeah, it's I think it's crucial to some degree to have some sort of volume assessment from any training session, because you want to see, are you kind of maximizing what you're doing on the pitch, and are you getting as much bang for your buck as possible? And yeah, you want to do as little volume as you can for the maximal output. So you have to have a way of quantifying what you're doing. And that then supports the testing, or sort of the fitness assessments and testing that are going on as well, because you can then see, are we doing enough to elicit improvements, but not doing so much that we're overloading the players. And yeah, again, that kind of volume data from your training allows you to kind of manage that and ultimately kind of manage the risk that you're exposing your players to. You don't want to keep pushing them in the pursuit of fitness gains, but pushing them to breaking point. So yeah, you kind of need to manage that risk. There'll always be some risk from training, and regardless of what you do, how much or how little. But yeah, you kind of you need to keep a track of that. And yeah, I had another point that was in my head then, and it's just left me. So I'll move on to the kind of what you would do for any monitoring. I think it's kind of having clear goals. What are you trying to assess? What do you want to look at? Because there is so much data available now. From any system, you're probably looking at, you can be hundreds and hundreds of different variables, and it's very easy to get lost in all of the numbers. So yeah, you need that kind of clear rationale, that clear purpose for what you're doing, and make it ultimately as simple as possible. That doesn't mean the numbers themselves are simple, but have as few, I think, as you can to keep it manageable, keep it clear, and working with your technical coaches and your sort of actual sport coaches, what is important to them as well. You'll always have, I think you kind of have two reporting streams, and that you have what you feel is relevant from the scientific side, but then what the coach is interested in and what they want to see, and how can it support what they want to do, because that's ultimately what you're there for, as a sort of scientific support staff, conditioning support staff. You're there to support the football coach get the results that he wants. So you need to kind of have that buy-in and that link with him as well. And yeah, then but also by having your own sort of principles alongside, like you can build sort of longer term, because yeah, the coaches themselves, they do move on probably more regularly than the support staff. So by having that kind of legacy sort of program in place as well, you've got something comparable across, because yeah, playing styles change, philosophies change from those support staff. So yeah, keep it simple, and yeah, have a clear goal in mind, I think, and ultimately what can you do to support the football staff.
Yeah, sure. So moving to Pedro. Pedro, can you tell us something about, when we see this lot of fitness testing and people talking about it, and the coaches giving more importance on this fitness testing. So from a coaching perspective and from the team management perspective, we try to include the most fit people for the final squad. And at sometimes you might see that the person who is most fit may not be doing best on the field. So at times in this decision making, that which one to include in the final squad, apart from fitness testing, I mean, even though you have the mandatory fitness test to come back in the squad, what do you think should be more or should be supplemented or should be added to this fitness testing, that can actually give us the overall picture when we think about selection of the final squad based on the maximum fitness and the maximum deliverability on that particular day of the match day?
Okay, I think I should highlight what Dr. Graham just said. It is important to understand that we have a lot of data. Nowadays, we have dozens, maybe hundreds of variables that we can achieve with a GPS system, for instance. But we have to understand, and it is important that we do this interpretation with the coaches. We have to understand what is really relevant for them, what is really important for them. Because as Dr. Graham just said, we can be lost in all of that data. So if we understand what's important, then we can reduce that data to some acceleration data, maybe the number of runs that we can do above a determined velocity, and we can understand the players that in the game or in trainings have the ability to be in that levels, and that can help us make better decisions, and can help coaches to make better decisions. It is important to understand that different teams have different game models. So the fact that the player can reach a high velocity may be important for a coach that plays in counterattack, but for a coach that plays in a positional attack that doesn't have the same space for these kind of runs, that variable maybe it's not that important. So it is important to do this interpretation of the data with the coaches, with the head coaches, so that they're not lost in all of that information. Also, I would like to say that in Portugal, and I think in Spain, it happens the same. The recruitment is basically, like Dr. Juan said, on the eyes of the coaches, of experts that select players. We don't usually do any physical tests to select players. Now, there's a problem with this. We assume that players, after getting to the academies, have the ability with the physical trainings to reach high levels of strength, endurance, velocity, and sometimes that doesn't happen, because we can apply the same external loads for the athletes, the same methodology, but the players react in different ways because they have different genetic abilities. So this is a problem sometimes because we make mistakes. We go after players that have huge talent, technical talent, decision-making talent, but after that, we cannot evolve these players to a minimal physical level that can help them get to an elite level. So sometimes we make mistakes by doing that, and sometimes we make mistakes because, as we all know, many players are recruited because they are more matured, they are more grown than other colleagues, and that's the opposite problem. So it is really difficult, since we select players by watching them play, to know what is going to happen to them after 3, 4, 5 years of physical training, if they will reach a minimal level of physical fitness to reach the first teams, the elite team, the national teams. So this is something really interesting. And just not to forget, I'm sorry if I'm taking too much time, but when you ask Alex if you choose a test, it is very interesting. I agree, speed is probably the most important thing nowadays in football, not only running fast, but also this, the decision to think fast, to execute fast. But if I had little time, little resources, I would do a squat jump, a counter movement jump, because it is really fast and really fast to learn how to do it, to repeat it. And we have a very close relationship between the counter movement jump and speed abilities, particularly in youth players and also in amateur levels. When we reach the elite level, the relationship is not that clear. So if a player jumps higher in a counter movement jump, that doesn't necessarily mean he's faster. But in youth players, for recruitment, in amateur levels, I would do that.
Yes, Pedro, I do agree with you. But you know, when we were working with the team, some of the challenges were the coaches, I was some kind of ignored by the management because they always wanted some validated data or some objective data for fitness testing and you know, looking at the fitness part of the players to be there. So coming to this question with Ramji, Ramji, you have you know, an Indian worked in an Indian scenario, and you know, in our setup, we rely more on the objective data and not the quality and the coach's eye. And sometimes you might have faced these problems that you know, whether deciding somebody who is good and who is talented, sometimes somebody who is showing good fitness tests and all may be included in the squad, and that times you know, how do you see this issue?
Oh yeah.
Scenario.
Oh yeah,
We
absolutely.
have you know, all oldies doing the good fitness testing and still there in the squad, not performing on the match day, and you know, youth being ignored at certain times, who are really good at that, you know, the playing the match on the final day. So how do you?
Absolutely. You nailed it. You nailed it. You stole my thunder on a lot of things. The thing what I'm telling you is, I mean, what we have been observing, India is a different ball game altogether. You know, India is like a separate continent. You know, as Pedro was telling and others were telling, it's a different ball game altogether in soccer. But still, we don't have data. there are various things which we need to look into, starting from under 12 or under 14 or whichever age group, set up the testing methodologies. The process in place has to be foolproof and cannot be tampered with, which we do a lot in India. This is reality, hard reality. That's why you don't set up a standard to the world level. We are very content and talk philosophy. Once we lose and winning, okay, we go overboard. But look at the other elite athletes performing all over the world. We have to take a leaf out of everybody, modify it, what is specific to India, and then progress over a period of time. Data collection is very important, as it is become a norm now, and fitness testing and fitness analysis involving so many other support staff. Like you need a biomechanist, you need an exercise physiologist, you need a nutritionist, etc. All work in tandem to get the best desired possible. And coach is the ultimate. Coach is a hub, and we are all support staff, be it anybody for that matter. Coach is the ultimate. So he or she decides who is fit and who is not fit at the end of the day after comparing all the data. Match fitness is something different. Whether it's cricket or soccer or tennis or, cutting across varied sport, one has to be match fit. In my experience over a period of maybe last 20 years, we have seen guys, those who are phenomenal in fitness levels, but they are not able to transfer that fitness level, what they do outside onto the field. So that is a huge vacuum here in India. That cutting edge, what you call bridging the gap, is very critical. No point talking theories till the cows come home. We need to bridge the gap between theory and practice. That's when you lie success. You can start out with a small group over a period of time and take a group of 30 kids or 30 amateur and progress over a period of time, because Rome was not built in a day. It takes time. And we need to have our own system. Take a leaf out of every country. Try not to replicate. That is my humble opinion. Is if an SNC, if a workout, what Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi they are doing, we try to copy directly, into the system because it's successful for them. It is not so. We are all like thumb impression. Everybody is genetically different. We need to create that bespoke workout, and also the bespoke workout according to the skill set in a game. So that has to be done. That has to be understood first. That has to be applied. We don't have application. The problem is we need to have application in place, and somebody has to take the responsibility in every level, every stage, because we cannot pass the buck. Like a true executive, we cannot pass the buck to others. So somebody has to take the responsibility in executing this, and it is over a period of time. And since availability of technology is huge and information is massive, so one need to be very prudent, very I'm not getting the right word, very prudent, I would say, to get the desired menu. You have a buffet in front of you, you need to pick what is right for you, right food for you. Similarly, as far as fitness, strength and conditioning is concerned, you need to have very specialized, individualized workout protocols, which is given in other countries. But as far as India is concerned, one size fits all. No, it cannot be. We are all different. Every individual is different. We need to work on that over a period of time. That needs a system in place. I think slowly we are getting there. We are getting there. I hope the others don't.
We are getting there, but we should be getting there at the pace where world is moving on, and that's more important.
They should not be playing in Mars. We'll be playing in Earth.
yes, definitely. I would love to hear this question from both Graham and Alex. First, moving to Graham. You see that technology is encroaching almost everywhere in the sports industry, and sports techs are coming up. So what do you see in terms of technology in the fitness testing and assessment arena, that is at present, and what is its future ahead? For Graham, how do you see it in the field of football?
Yeah, that's a tough question. because we do monitor so much now, I'm kind of trying to think what there is that we're not actually covering regularly. I think that I guess the kind of holy grail would always be some sort of genetic testing. Obviously that's probably a little bit different, but so you can almost tell who can do what before they're even part of a program. But yeah, that's obviously nowhere near, I don't think, at the moment still. In terms of like the day-to-day stuff we can do now, I think to move it on, just make it even easier, like make devices less noticeable, and less noticeable. I was going to say less intrusive, but I don't think they are particularly intrusive, but just make everything more convenient, more kind of integrated, because you can get lost in, obviously we've said that the vast number of variables, but also the vast number of just different like technologies and systems that are available. So I think kind of that the amalgamation of stuff will be of different things will be kind of probably what happens over the coming years, just to make it more convenient and easier for kind of the staff to manage on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. So Alex, these days we are seeing a lot of wearable technologies, and something in the field of strength conditioning, like velocity-based devices are popping up and all. So how do you see that application of these devices in terms of developing basically an assessment of strength per se in the gym, and using these wearable technologies? Is the application and the reliability of the data obtained from it.
So, well, first of all, following a little bit what Graham was saying, for me, it would be amazing to have GPS in the future that can give you technical, tactical, and physical data at the same time. That would be, because as right now, you see that the player has run 500 meters at high intensity, but how did he run those 500 meters, That for me, I mean, now you can do it with cameras and all that stuff, but you have to have someone doing it, by having it, immediately. That would be awesome. And following what you were saying with the velocity-based systems, I think it has been great, because before, like, you have to expose the player to a maximal repetition of a squat that can be very intrusive, and you can get your athlete injured. Now with these devices, you can know that without exposing the player to that heavy load, And then if you see that the player is also he's training, not even testing him, he's training, and that velocity is going down, then that is the moment to stop. So I think those velocity-based machines in the gym they are big. They're big. They're a very good thing to have. You're muted, Dr. Amol, I think.
Sorry. So Alex,
no worries.
Apart from this, I would love to hear from you that what would you recommend for the clubs that can't afford expensive equipments for testing player? And maybe Johan can add to his experience of,
this
question.
I will let Alex reply to the question.
Okay. Yes, Alex.
This is actually a great question to follow with what Pedro was saying, because we're fortunate to have the GPS, but if we didn't have them and we needed to test players, I think right now with a smartphone, I don't know if you can see it in the camera, like, you can do amazing things and being creative. And one of the things that is pretty easy to do with a camera of an smartphone is a counter movement jump. And as Pedro was saying, and I said before also, if youth players normally are strong or fast vertically, they're also going to be horizontally. So it's a great tool to have. So and as right now we have also many apps that can give you the same information that a force plate gives you for $10. So I think is I think there is no excuses if you want to assess your players these days. Sorry, you're muted again.
Yeah. Yes. So coming to Pedro, I want to know that what would be an ideal scouting process in terms of, what would be your assessment and, fitness markers that you would place as a priority when you're scouting somebody for the academy athletes, and then going on to the transition things, and how do you look at as a long-term development project for a soccer player? Because this is something which is more important, and fitness, although is an important criteria, and as you mentioned, he should be tactical, technical, both the things come into picture. But if you really want to make a good footballer who is professionally playing, so what we can see as a recipe of talent nurturing and developing?
When I was saying earlier that in Portugal we recruit most of the times players by looking at them, by seeing games or trainings of the players. That's not necessarily a compliment. That's how we do it. It works in a certain way because Portugal, it's a country that sport is almost football. We don't have the other sports are not at the same level, not even close. So we have a lot of experts, a lot of old players. So we can say that we don't fail too much by doing that. But I think it is crucial that by using GPS or another video observation system, we have to be able to analyze the tactical questions, the positioning, what happens in the game besides the number of kilometers of the velocities of the players. Because talent and the ability for players to be in the elite, maybe it's much more related with this tactical behavior, with this decision making, than the physical questions or the physical abilities of the players. And this is a big challenge. First of all, because when we recruit players, we don't have the system, the GPS system with the players. So the best thing we can do is to film games and to see it afterwards. When we have the ability to use the GPS system, nowadays it is quite complicated, quite complex to analyze the tactical behavior of the players. It is possible, I think it was Alex that said that, we can have someone with us, with MATLAB, that has the ability to structure information for the coaches, but this is very complicated nowadays. And I think this is crucial to make better decisions for recruitment. And also, when we are in the academies, we have players getting in and getting out. So when we decide that a player has to get out, we have to be most certain of the variables that support that decision. And I think we still make too many mistakes in these decisions of who gets in and especially who gets out. You're muted, Doctor. Okay.
Sorry. So yeah, great. So Mr. Delgado, can you tell us that when a player is being transferred from one club to other and he comes to you, how do you manage his periodization in terms of strength training or his fitness parameters when you're matching him with the already what the players you have in the team? So because he may be at a different methodology, working with different mindset under a different coach, and when the change of coach is there, when the change of SNC is there, then how do you adjust him to your team?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think the very short answer is patience and time. You need, and no, but it's a very important aspect. You for instance do all the scouting process and then you recruit a player. You cannot expect for him to perform at his level best day one. So it needs an adaptation. And coming back to what Pedro was mentioning before, it depends on the game model. It depends on the playing style. It depends on so many factors. And this adaptation it takes time. It takes time. So for instance, normally if we scout locally and this player is coming to our environment, the first thing he's going to struggle is with the speed of play and the speed of decision making. So you need some time, and you need to also support him and analyze what are the 2-3 things that are going to help him the most. What are the fundamentals that he is lacking? You know, we're realizing now with 14-year-old kids that we saw playing very good at their club. When they come in, they don't perform, but for instance, they don't have the habit to check and to scan the field before receiving the ball, because in their former team they were the best. The pace of the game was lower, so they could control, they could look at, they could gather the information from the environment, and then start the decision-making process. With us, it's different. Everything happens faster, so he needs to get the habit of, okay, how can I decide even before receiving the ball? So this is just a small example, but coming back to your question, time and patience and the process is what we need when you bring in. It's like when we change jobs, you know, if tomorrow I'm going to work in Russia, what I'm gonna need, you know, I'm gonna need time to adapt. I need to understand the culture. I need to learn the language. I need to get along with my peers. So it's the same for the players. So we need to be patient in this sense.
Alex, yeah, I'm kind of forgetting that. So, in terms when we actually do this fitness testing, how do you see the women football and women athletes and the men athletes when we are doing this testing? Is there any difference in the testing procedure, in the testing, the data, not the normative data, or the parameters that we are looking at for men and women in football?
So I haven't had the luck to work with women, but I have also, of course, done my research. I think, of course, men are able to reach higher speeds, but I don't think that is going to be a crucial thing for women inside their sport. I think the assessments that can be different for them, it can be more the functional movement assessments, because they can have different type of injuries because of their body structure. So for me, the crucial difference that can be between both sports is just functional movement. But for the rest, I think is the same.
Pedro, I would love to have your comment on that, about the women in fitness testing and assessments.
Well, I didn't work until now with women also, like Alex. I think the fitness levels, of course, are very different. I think we have to understand better what's different between a women's soccer game and a men's soccer game, because it is different. But we didn't study it enough to see what's different in it. Of course, players run less kilometers with less velocities, all of that, but the game, it's different. Even the decision making, the positionings. So we have to understand a little bit better. Here in Portugal, the Portuguese Football Federation is making a huge effort to study more the women football. So we have a lot of teams that are being monitored with the GPS systems, so that we can have more data about training in games. Of course, we don't have the same number of clubs and the same number of players. It's a huge difference, but it's a work that we are doing now so that we can try to understand if we have to be able to do different assessments for the female football or not, if the same tests are applied and should be interpreted in the same way. So it's a challenge also, and in Portugal we are giving the first steps in that matter.
That's great to hear. Mr. Delgado, your comments on that, the women assessment in women.
Again, I have not had the opportunity to work
I know you
in
haven't,
women's
you
soccer.
all guys. It was just
Yeah.
for the viewers, because there was a request to ask the question from the audience that they need to know something on the women football, because that's the burning topic of today.
Yeah.
That's coming up these days. So
Thank
they
you.
need to know more about that. That's why I had deliberately put it.
No worries. As I said, no experience on women football. What is obvious is the game is growing at an incredible speed. Traditionally, here in the US, soccer has been more a woman football than a man. Here, the equation is the reverse one, but again, men's football or men's soccer is growing a lot in the US, as well as women football is growing a lot globally, and especially in Spain. I can tell you the importance that La Liga Iberdrola has taken in the past 3 years, in the past 2, I would say. All the games are broadcasted. The league become fully professionalized, and FIFA is one of the main goals for the current mandate of FIFA is developing the game at the women's level. So I think we are in a good spot, in a good moment, and I think that will help the game to grow globally as well. So that's my opinion. Testing wise, I have an idea of a friend of mine has a company that uses biomarkers to or specifically to avoid injuries, and for this matter it came my attention because the way the analysis is and the whole approach is taken is completely different for men and women. Being the period in the woman in the cycle on the woman side, a crucial aspect on how to train, when to train, and how to avoid injuries as well. So I think physiologically speaking, we have some differences there, and that sports scientists should take into account when trying to keep the players healthy and ready to perform at highest level.
Sure. You touched upon an important aspect of injuries and the difference between the men and women, and how a women ACL is different in women and how they will be more prone to injuries and all. So coming back to this question, this question is open to all the panelists, and anybody can take it. But what kind of precaution would you be taking when you're doing a testing when an athlete has returned from a serious injury, like for example a knee injury, a ACL injury, and he's completed his rehab but now just coming back to the season? So any particular fitness test for him, or it's fitness test for the battery of tests is for all? So any special treatment for that, or something or he's just like to be treated like a common player and brought into the game?
I can go first if you guys want.
Sure.
So for me, testing is we divide our injuries in 4 phases, and to pass from one phase to another, there is some testing that needs to be done. So if he's almost getting in the phase to return to play, that means that he already has reached maybe 90% of his maximal velocity or 90% of his maximal acceleration. So we know that he's ready to go back to the field. We wouldn't put him on the field if we haven't done that kind of testing first.
Sorry. Yes, Pedro, can you shed some light on it?
Yeah, I was listening to Alex. I usually don't do this kind of procedures. So in a structure, in an academy, in a club, when a player has an injury, a serious injury like an ACL injury, there's a lot of testing medical testing and also physical testing, so that the physiotherapy can be organized and can develop from stage to stage. So it's like Alex said, there are certain levels that have to be reached before the players pass to the next stage of their recovery. So when the players go to the field, they are medically in conditions to play and to train. Of course, afterwards, there's something like the sport ability to go to a competition, and that takes time. Sometimes players are a little afraid after a serious injury. So this is sometimes more psychological than physical, but like Alex explained, these steps from stage to stage are very well determined, and I think it's not a problem.
Your views. You're mute.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, I'm asking your views when you're going with an injured athlete back after a rehab.
Yeah, no,
any differences with the fitness testing and evaluation?
So basically, as my colleagues has mentioned here, one of the ideas with the testing is to have a baseline and to understand how the athlete looks when he's healthy and ready to perform. So it's basically reverse engineering the process and making sure when the player is injured, is getting to these levels of performance, or these levels of getting healthy enough to go into the field. So one of the key aspects of a good recovery is not to have a recurrency, right? So it's important that we use these tools to make sure that we return to play in an optimal manner. And when I say optimal manner, it's also the fastest possible way. So I think the difference between a high performance environment and a non-high performance environment is the efficiency and the efficacy on the decision-making process. So the recovery of an injury, if you can have this player back 2 weeks earlier, awesome. So that should be the goal. And again, that's keeping this balance between returning as soon as possible, but also with the least level of risk. I think it determines the level of high performance of an organization, basically, when we're talking about the recovery of injuries.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Just to say something, sometimes injuries can be a window of opportunity because nowadays, particularly in elite, we have too many games, and players have the management, the effort management. We try to keep them healthy and to play the next game, but we don't have time or the opportunity to develop certain physical questions that many players need, particularly when players come from the youth teams and get to the first team. And sometimes some injuries can give time for the players, not only to recover that injury, but also for developing other abilities, of other physical questions that they need. So it's a bad thing, but it can be an opportunity.
Yeah, great. So coming to Ramji.
Yes.
Ramji, your comments on the, and SNC for an injured athlete and difference in the women athletes, especially women soccer player. Any comments
I
that
haven't
you would love
worked
to? I know you
like
have
others.
worked,
I
that's
haven't
why I
worked
was
with many
just
women soccer
curious
players.
about asking it.
Injury, as we all know, part and parcel of any sports persons, whether fit or not fit, because it can happen on the ground or not, or in the gym, anywhere. But getting back, return to sport is very critical, what level they are in, and progression is the key. What sort of test we need to do at that point of time, when are the matches scheduled, where is in the if he's 90%, 95% fit, he's ready to go. But there also we need progression. What parameters we need to look at to start the strengthening process, or the speed, or cord, or any other explosive power. So it varies from person to person, because one size doesn't fit all. I am a very strong believer. You need to take one player at a time to decide on a protocol. It may not be same for others, but at least you need to have a wider map of what need to be done. But progression is the key as far as returning to sport is concerned, in what components of fitness he or she needs to work at that point of time to progress to the level where she or she started off in elite level. So that is very critical, but monitoring is the key, and also how fast they're able to recover. The recovery protocols is mostly not been addressed very well. What are the recovery protocols need for high performance, which also plays a very important role in injury management and cure or prevention. So apart from the training and the workload, etc., management, etc., these recovery protocols also need to be addressed, and to see where he or she started before the injuries and go back, progressively over a period of time. But other athletes, apart from soccer, I haven't done any ladies. Maybe in the future. Let's hope so.
So coming back, we are almost nearing our time. I mean, we are superseded it, but using the cushion time. So going back to the last thing, that is the closing remarks. Graham, would you like to add some closing remarks on fitness assessment? Anything that you want to give away our attendees, any actionable things or something like that?
Probably nothing significantly different to what we've already gone over. I think in whatever form your assessment is taking, whether it's using GPS, whether it's using heart rate monitoring, whether it's your fitness testing protocols, it's just to be clear in what are you assessing, and is what you're doing or choosing to do the best way of doing that, and just having that really clear, sound rationale for it. Like, is what I'm doing, does it fit the organization? Is it scientifically sound? And ultimately, can you justify it? I think there'll always be, whether it's within your organization or outside of it, there'll always be people who perhaps question or criticize what others are doing. It's part and parcel of being a human. It not necessarily specific to sport either. But if you can justify what you're doing and you're happy with that justification, that's kind of the key to it. So just clear goals, clear purpose of what you're doing, and try not to overcomplicate things, because I think there's always a temptation to do that.
Important, try not to complicate things. With that, we move to Alex, your closing remarks.
Yeah, following up a little bit with what Graham said, I think we live in the world of data right now, and we can't forget that at the end it's a tool. It's a tool to support what we do, but the most important thing that we do, and that's why we're all here, I think, is because we love soccer, and soccer has to be the most important piece, and how we use that tool to support and to help us with what we do. But I think we can't forget that soccer is the most important piece.
Yes, it's important. It's like a culture. It's not important piece, it's a culture.
Yeah.
So coming back to Ramji for your closing remarks.
I think we have to always stick on to the basics. Very important is basic foundation, and keep certain things very simple and straightforward, and use the data prudently. Use the data prudently for the higher level, and collect data. Start collecting data in India. Not fudge data. We need to be there. We need to be there. Learn from all these experts. I think scope is huge. We need to harness it well. We have enough talent in our country. Government is doing loads of things now. I think keep it simple. Stick on to basics always. Go back to basics and get back. And then prudent application of data, which to use when, how, where, why, etc. So that's my
Rightly said,
final.
Ramji. We have an access to the technology. We have the access to the coaching, best coaches in the world, and we have the best facilities. The only thing is the tool to
Process.
use all the things at right time, right place, and with right intention. That's more
Yes.
important these days.
Intent is very important, and long-term vision very important.
Definitely.
We cannot be
Definitely.
myopic.
Definitely. Coming back to Dr. Johan, your closing remarks.
Thank you. No, just reinforcing both the importance of keeping it simple, going to the 2080 rule, use the data that accounts for the 80% of the impact, and start from the sport. One of the challenges that we're gonna face with access to these big amounts of data is we're trying to replace everything with artificial intelligence and other stuff. So I'm a romantic of the game, and I think we play the game because we love it. So keep loving the game, use the technology to enhance these feelings and this passion, and try to keep it simple. I think that's what the masters do, right? So masters make difficult things to seem easy to do. So I think as a sports scientist here, we should strive for the same. How we can simplify complexity or use these tools to make better decisions, but always being connected to the essence of the game. So at the end, football is a game. Don't forget that.
Yes, sure. And I'm going to take your, statement, 2080 rule. I love that. 80% accountability with the 20% things. So coming back to Pedro, your closing remarks before we end the session.
Okay, thank you. Just to say, don't forget that players are athletes, and we have to do some testing so that we can develop the players. But these athletes are football players. So when we do the testing, we have to understand: is it really important to do that test? Are we going to use that data? Just don't forget that football has science, but football it's not science, and sometimes. People, like Dr. Juan said, don't keep it simple, complicated, have too much data and get lost in that process. So remember that football has science, but football is a game. It doesn't necessarily mean it is all science.
Definitely. Thank you. With that, I'm sure all the audiences must have liked it, and it was a great discussion. I would have loved continuing the session more, but we have more sessions lined up in this hall, and